Welcome back, everyone. I hope you had an enlightening and enjoyable time during your workshops. There were many venues that we went to, and I hope you settle down now because we have still quite a few exciting things left. For our next session, it aims to be a precedent. We aim to set a precedent in workshop safety and prevention of sexual harassment in ecology and conservation. It is essential that we all participate in this important session and be interactive. So make sure you pay close attention and actively engage in this session. To guide us through this important session, we have three facilitators, and we are fortunate to have this team of Dr. Divya Vasudev, Dr. Suhail Kadar, and Ishika Ramkrishnan. They will be leading us through this crucial topic. To introduce them, please join me in welcoming Ishika Ramkrishnan.
Hi everyone, can you hear me? Yeah? Okay, great. So the reason we are having this session and the reason why we made it mandatory for everybody at the conference this year is because, of course, the matter of sexual harassment is one of utmost importance, is something that we should all be taking very seriously, be thinking actively about, and it's also a matter of legal concern. And it's something that definitely occurs in and affects our workspace, many workspaces and the people who are a part of it. So today, we are really hoping to use SCCS as a platform where we can begin this conversation as individuals, as institutions, and just really come together to try and take steps towards setting mechanisms in place to make this space safer and easier and better for everyone to work in. So if all of you can grab your mobile phones, keep them on silent, but we're going to have a Mentimeter session right now. So I'm sure some of you are going to be familiar with this. I can see a bunch of you already joining in. So for those of you who haven't joined in yet, sorry, give me a second to change the slide. Can you just help me with this? I think this wasn't working. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I'm just going to give everyone a few seconds to join this in, and I'd like for each of you to interact as much as possible. For those of you who aren't familiar with this platform, it's entirely anonymous, so please answer freely. We'll have no idea who is saying what. We'll just have a general idea of how many people said what. So awesome, I see a whole bunch of people joining in, and the top of each slide is going to have the code. So in case you still haven't joined in, you can go to menti.com and type that code in as we move forward. Okay, so let's start really easy. Who are you? Which of these best describes you? Okay, so we have a lot of students clearly at the student conference, which is great news. Also a lot of working professionals. Fantastic. We also have a high school student, welcome. And I'm really glad we're getting to have this conversation so early on with you. Fantastic. Great, so we have a general sense of the spread of the audience here, and this is also for all of you to have a sense of who's at the conference and the kind of composition that the field also has in many different workspaces and interaction areas. So tell us roughly how old you are now. Great, okay. Awesome. So clearly SCCS has done a good job with its advertising for students at this conference. Okay, so what genders are all of you? Can add that in. Great. So now we also have a good idea of the spread of everyone here, and also I think everyone's familiar with Menti right now. In case you're having any issues, just reach out to a volunteer near you and see if they can assist you in any way. So let's move on to some of the more serious matters of discussion and the reason why we are here. So I'm going to give everyone about 30 seconds, and if you could tell me how you would define sexual harassment. I'm sure this is a term that a lot of you have heard over time, either through your peers, in your workspaces, on social media, or from personal experience. Unwanted advances, inappropriate behavior, yes. Unwanted interactions of a sexual nature, non-consensual advances, absolutely. A lot of important terms showing up. Feeling unsafe, yes. Verbal advances without consent, so it doesn't necessarily always have to be physical. You're absolutely right. It could also be mental abuse in different ways which have a sexual connotation. Yeah, so we're seeing a lot of unsafe, non-consensual, unwelcome, and yes, you're all along absolutely the right lines. And like we were saying earlier, this is also something which is a legal matter, right? This is something which comes along with its own legal terminology and jargon, and it's really important that we all understand this. And it's really important that we also understand our rights as individuals generally in the world, and also within our workspaces, and to know what is okay and what is not okay. So while today's session is largely to give you a basic introduction and to give you some amount of awareness and resources, and we don't have a lot of time for too much interaction beyond that, but I really hope that some of these definitions really sink in and that we can talk more about it within our spaces and communities. So let's move on to how sexual harassment is defined in the legal context and within a lot of different institutions and organizations. So we've been using the word POSH. POSH is prevention of sexual harassment, right? So how do we define it? Sexual harassment is defined as any unwelcome sexually related behavior, whether in person or via messaging, digital platforms, etc. And this is important, especially today. And examples can include unwelcome physical contact and advances, demand or request for sexual favors, sexually colored remarks, showing pornography or any other unwelcome physical, verbal, non-verbal conduct of a sexual nature. And one other thing to really remember is that it includes quid pro quo style demands for sexual favors. So there are power systems in place, there are hierarchies that can play into how sexual harassment could occur, and it's important to be aware of this. So now, yes, and also it does not involve only the perpetrators, but it's something that really all of us have a role and responsibility to work towards, right? And we need to work towards removing it, or at least try our best to reduce such behavior and call it out when we see it. A key aspect of the definition is that it's not just about the intention, but it's about what comes after that, right? What comes after the action, so how it is received and how it is perceived. So this is something that is of utmost importance. So now you can get back to your phones and tell us how you define a workspace, especially given that we are all from the fields of ecology and conservation. Yep, a lot of us spend a lot of time in the field. You can also maybe put in what you mean by field. How would you define that area? Fieldwork in villages, online spaces, classrooms. Yes, very much. A lot of us here are part of educational institutions, and classrooms do form part of the workspace, and it falls under that definition as well. The office, labs, departments, any place away from home as well, yeah, where you do work, living areas, forested areas, meeting rooms, yeah, villages, Zoom meetings, conferences as well. And again, to redirect you to our code of conduct to know what kind of policies we have here at this conference, because this is also a workspace. Okay, so to just kind of synthesize what all of you said, clearly a lot of it was covered. So the POSH Act of India uses an extensive definition of workspace. It's not just an ordinary location of work, but it can include all the places you visit as part of your work, including transport to and from these places. And it also means that it covers any place outside of the physical institution. So it can also be workshops, conference venues, field stations, field sites, and more, right? Especially if it is paid for by your employer. So this is how it is legally defined, and it does cover all of the areas that you put out in the word cloud. So let's do some more polling. Have you personally ever experienced sexual harassment in the workspace, now that you know what the definitions are? Okay. All right. Okay. Still a big proportion of people sitting here. Okay. Do you personally know of anyone, these could be your peers, friends, colleagues, at any point in time, not just now or in the recent past, who have experienced sexual harassment? Wow, that number really shot up this time. It's always hard to see the huge imbalance between the yes and no's here. Okay, so clearly, you can see why a session like this is one that we should be having and should be talking about. Have you ever filed a POSH complaint with your organization? And if no, tell us why no. Is it because you were worried about the repercussions? Was it because the organization didn't have mechanisms in place, or you weren't aware of them, or because you didn't have to? Okay. Great. Now, if you said yes to the question before, all right. Okay. So, for those of you who had mechanisms in place to complain, there were still some cases where you weren't happy with the response. So also tell us, the place where you are currently affiliated to, do they have any mechanisms in place which are easy to access? Can you navigate them well? Do you understand the policies in place? Okay, it's good to see a majority of people saying yes, but there is still a lot of people in the other two columns. All right. So for those of you who said yes especially, what sort of mechanisms does your organization have? Do you have a POSH policy guidelines document? Do you have an IC or an internal complaint committee? Do you have any awareness or training programs internally? Access to health professionals, mental health professionals? Okay, it's nice to see that there is quite a spread, especially that there are a lot of places that have awareness workshops. Okay, this is nice to see. So, as you can tell, we are moving in the direction of trying to understand the gaps within our conservation spaces. So where our organizations need to up their game a little bit, where do we as individuals need to demand more? And so it is important again to bring you back to what each organization is supposed to have, again for you to be aware of your rights and what ought to be in place. So all institutions with more than 10 employees are mandated by law to have a POSH policy in place and also an IC. And those that are smaller than 10 employees in size can still choose to have a policy, and of course we do very strongly encourage it. For those that have less than 10 members, matters concerning sexual harassment sometimes can be directed outside of the community through more legal and governmental avenues. So the POSH Act of 2013, which forms the template for how a lot of organizations form their own internal POSH guidelines documents, specifically address sexual harassment targeted against women. But we, of course, really try to look at it from the point of view of anyone who may have faced sexual harassment. And we also encourage institutions to look at it from multiple angles and make these guidelines as inclusive as possible. And the policy needs to be communicated to all members. It should be easy to understand and easy to use and apply. And at this point, since we keep saying this is what should be done, this is what ought to be done, and we all need to be more aware, I'm going to take this opportunity to invite Dr. Suhail Kader and Dr. Divya Vasudev onto the stage and join us in talking a little bit about what a collective of people have been trying to put in place for this very purpose. So, can you join me on stage, please? Yeah.
Thanks, Ishika. A few months ago, about 30 people who work in conservation and ecology, broadly defined, including biodiversity, evolution, and so on, came together to try and put together some resources and guidelines to do with the prevention of sexual harassment. And some of their work is what you're about to see. Now, you might ask, what am I doing here talking about this as a man? And of course, it's true that sexual harassment is largely experienced by women. And so we think of it as a problem of women, that for something that women should talk about, should discuss, should mobilize about, should find solutions for, should advocate for, and society changes in that way. But of course, although sexual harassment may be predominantly experienced by women, it is predominantly perpetrated by men. And so sexual harassment is a problem for women, but it's a problem of men and by men. And so that means that the other men, people who said they were men, plus I'm sure there are others who didn't join the mentee, in the larger world, it's a problem for all of us to engage with, to step forward and do the right thing. And that means to understand the issue, to listen to women, to understand the law, to learn how to be an ally, and to advocate for change. So I think it's time for us men to step up and do what's right, to get together, to discuss, and to be part of the solution and not just the problem. And the website that you're about to see has resources for institutions about their obligations, but also has a large section for individuals, both women as well as men, for how all of us can be, as I say, part of the solution and not the problem. So I'll hand over the rest to Divya to take you through the website. Thank you.
Thanks, Suhail, and thanks, Ishika. Like both Suhail and Ishika said, a few months back, a bunch of us got together, and while we were talking, one of the things that we realized is that we have a lot of questions. And that came through in, I think, the Mentimeter survey as well. There were a lot of people who said not sure to some of the questions, or I don't know, and I don't have all the answers. Well, we don't have all the answers for you as either, but what we did do is we put together some resources and decided to make information accessible to both institutions and individuals. So the aim of this website, and all of you can please feel free to access it, it's called seas-india.in. The aim of this website is to provide information to all of you, make it easily accessible, and provide it in a way that is easy to understand and assimilate. So there is information provided for both institutions as well as for individuals. The aim being to make institutions, to kind of move the system towards institutions being more legally compliant with POSH, with the POSH Act, both in letter as well as in spirit, as well as empowering individuals such that they have more information as to what they can do and as to what they can expect from their institutions. So let me just walk you a little bit through the website. This is the home page. If I click on, so this is the page for institutions. This is both for senior management in institutions to see whether their institutions are compliant with POSH, as well as for a number of people to look at whether their own institutions can do better with POSH. So there's what we have done is that a lot of your organizations have a POSH policy, which is great to see, but some of your organizations may not. And some of your organizations' POSH policy may be improved. So what we have done is that we have put together a template, a POSH policy template, that is a prevention of sexual harassment policy template. We have run this through a lawyer as well, and it is freely available for you to download as either a PDF document or a Word document. We have also put together some field safety guidelines. Now our field is a little different because we are not in standard workspaces, we're in non-standard workspaces. So we have put together some field safety guidelines which help in making field spaces and workspaces a little bit safer in terms of sexual harassment. And the other thing on the website is what are the requirements that institutions have if they want to be legally compliant with the POSH Act. So you can all go through all of these points and see if your organization is legally compliant, and if it is not, you can see how to make your organization a little bit more compliant and therefore a little bit safer in terms of POSH. The other tab, if you look up there, is for individuals. So this provides a lot of resources and guidelines for individuals, and I encourage you all to please feel free to go through all of them. Broadly, it has these 4 sort of sections. One is to know your rights. What are the laws protecting women from sexual harassment? And what is it that you can expect from your institution? Some warning signs at the workspace. These are, of course, guidelines. How can you be a little bit more prepared, especially, like I said, especially when you're not in a standard office space, but you're in a non-standard workspace. And also some information for bystanders and allies. How can you be a better ally? There are also resources available for you to look through. A number of websites that we have put together to see if there's some additional information that you can get. Some questions that we all have, like things like what really constitutes a workspace. And finally, just to say that this is the culmination of an effort of a large number of people, more than 30 people from different institutions who have come together. We have also run this through some legal eyes. And you can please feel free to go through the website. And once you have gone through the website, please feel free. We all think that this is a really important issue. So please feel free to spread awareness about this website as well as this issue. If you see anything that your organization can do better, your team can do better, or your team project leaders can do better, please bring it up to their notice. And there are, I think, QR codes across the conference that you can look at in case you've lost the website name. That's it from me.
Thanks so much, Sohail and Divya, for that. And the last thing I wanted to just tell you, a lot of you may have already noticed, just when you exit the Audi, there is a pledge board up there which says we demand safer workspaces, with a lot of area there for you to add in your names and thoughts, and then you'll find some markers by the board as well. So over the next few days, please feel free to use that space to add in your names and just help us showcase how important this issue really is. So thank you so much for paying attention, and now we'll move on to the next thing. Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you very much for participating in that POSH session. And thank you very much to the facilitators for making it possible.